It might seem crazy what I'm about to say, but this is Pop Screen, a podcast from the Geek Show that looks at the good, the bad, and the ridiculous of movies, either starring by or about pop stars. Another podcast covers a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from documentaries to science fiction, from hip hop to country and western. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a writer and filmmaker who is regularly featured in the Geek Show, and I've been joined this week by.
I'm Mark Harrison. I'm a writer and quizmaster for Film Stories magazine, and I have the face of a Lego writer and quizmaster.
Yes, because we're starting a theme week, a Pop Screen theme week. Hard to say, exciting to do. Pop Screen theme month, I should say. We are doing autobiopics where people play themselves, not a thinly veiled version of themselves, not a character based on themselves, but themselves in movies. And we have decided to kick it off with that Pharrell Williams movie that you probably didn't see.
Yeah, Piece by Piece is an odd case. This is a thing that I definitely wanted to see when it came out, just because I have an interest in brick films, as they're called. You know, films that are animated in a Lego style.
Yeah.
And there's some fascinating history of what's going on behind the scenes with brick films and Lego stuff that we'll get into later on. But this is essentially the story of Pharrell Williams, as told by and produced by and starring and soundtracked by Pharrell Williams. I remember seeing the trailer for this, and the trailer is more or less like the scene that opens the movie, just sort of Williams sitting down to talk with Morgan Neville, the director, about making a movie of his life, and kind of saying, you know what would be great? We should do it in Lego. That'd be like the best way to do this. And then, as the trailer has it, there's sort of a cacophony of, you know, the colourful, explosive Lego graphics. And as the film has it, there's just sort of a cacophony of explosive, colourful Lego graphics as well.
Well, yeah, they in the film, I haven't seen the trailer. I don't know if it's different in the trailer, but in the film, they have that conversation and it's already Lego animated. So you have a Lego animated Morgan Neville go, I don't know, animating this in Lego? That's weird. Ontologically, it's very challenging. I will say that.
Yeah, it's like yeah, I think it is just like the first interview they had, because it was somewhere around 2019 this started getting developed, I think, and then I'm not sure on the timeline of that. But yeah, but it's one of those things where it's basically Pharrell Williams. I think it's a perfect thing to kick off like an autobiopics season, because this is literally Pharrell Williams not like resisting making a documentary about his life, making a movie about his life, even though there was interest, and then just kind of being given carte blanche to go, very well, how would you do it if you do it? It's like, I want to do a Lego movie. So it's, you know, he joins the ranks of Shaquille O'Neal, Bruce Willis, and everybody in this movie as real people who have voiced their own Lego figures in Lego movies.
Yes.
It was a decent quiz question that's now been spiked by everyone in this film. Thanks, Pharrell.
Yeah, I have to say, from the start, it's quite an odd pitch, because I remember when this came out, just thinking something's not clicking here. And I think, to compare it to a film that we've covered on a Patreon episode before, if you compare this to Better Man, I think, I mean, it's a slightly odd comparison because Better Man tanked at the box office as well, but still. If you're in any way familiar with Robbie Williams, the idea that Robbie Williams sees himself as a chimpanzee is like, yep, that figures, that works.
Yep,
I buy that. Yep.
Yeah.
Pharrell as Lego, there just seems to be something that's missing there conceptually for me.
Well, I'm just going to read verbatim what it says like from the description of this, it's like it begins with Pharrell insisting that his story of his life should be told in Lego form. That's perfect for Lego, which is a funny way of phrasing because it is just kind of what happens. I think mentioning Better Man at this stage is important because, like, at the time of recording, we're staring down the barrel of Michael, the estate sanctioned and approved, Michael Jackson biopic from the producers of Bohemian Rhapsody. And we just had this thing in like late 2024 where these two movies came out, which are wildly different takes on, biopics of musicians. And they both tanked. It's like, oh, well, back to this. And Michael surely the subject of a future Pop Screen episode for someone else to do, thank fuck. But all of the nonsense behind that, the machinations behind that of a movie that is clearly expected to make $1 billion, so much so to the point that its delays and the things they've had to take out of it for legal reasons, might end up being part of, like, it worked for Wicked, that they made a part 2 to this. So, it could be that in a year or so from now, we're watching Michael for Bad come out into this. So as with Better Man, I just kind of look on this as like, oh, we could have had it all. Like we could have had even if, and I think Better Man is a better film than Piece by Piece. I quite like this approach, and not least as far as the Pharrell and Lego thing, because it didn't click to me either. And then the opening sequence, other than Pharrell, in interview style, in the Creature Comforts style, they've just animated interview recordings.
Yeah.
The thing that follows it in the, sort of sprawling and wobbly biopic that follows is this thing of synesthesia and this thing that Pharrell has of, like, seeing sounds, and like that lends itself brilliantly to colors, Lego, vibrant visuals. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then, it does some Lego-y things all the way through. There's a lot you can do with Lego because in terms of the brick film style of stuff, because this all kind of comes out of, Lego as a brand. And I'm not coming in as Lego expert here, but I'm going to end up talking about a lot of the background of the Lego franchise just because it's where
probably the closest we have to a Lego expert on this show.
It's like I have Lego experts thrust upon me, but here it is. Lego as a brand in the noughties it was always expensive. It was always doing Star Wars stuff, but the quality of the models wasn't that good. The price point has stayed about the same, but the toys themselves have got better. And it's just been this giant cross-marketing thing where they've got a lot of IP. They already had Lego Star Wars, and it's sort of branched out into Lego every franchise you can think of. You now don't need a Lego set, and you can build a spaceship you've seen in Star Wars. You have the set and the instructions on how to build this set from Star Wars, but part of that big mass marketing thing was that they would make Lego video games that were quite funny, and they were always quite like silent comedy. Like, if you look at any compilation of cutscenes on YouTube, it's like funny versions of Star Wars scenes, and condensing down the stupid lore of J.K. Rowling's last Harry Potter book to to the Lego Harry Potter game where Snape kills Voldemort because he eats the last biscuit, this kid-friendly silent comedy stuff where all the characters when they die explode into different legs and bits. So that's a sort of visual language that gets carried over into the films. Like Lord and Miller, Phil Lord and Chris Miller direct the Lego movie in 2014. These two guys have made their brand on doing things that seem like they're a terrible idea, and it turns out well, and it makes a huge amount of money. They make a couple more Lego movies in 2017, and the sequel to Lego movie, after a load of kind of development problems. Like at one point, it was going to be directed by Rob Schrab, who's a Rick and Morty writer, works with Dan Harmon a lot. Who take a drink, by the way, listeners. It's that time of the podcast. Was going to bring Doctor Who into it, which is why. One of the Lego games has Peter Capaldi, Michelle Gomez, and John Barrowman reprising their roles for a run around in what is probably the greatest Doctor Who video game ever made, because it has that thing of, there's no violence. Characters just burst into pieces and occasionally regenerate into different Doctors when they respawn. So this is all going in there. But the second film, that when it eventually comes out, is not as big a hit as the first one. Warner Brothers lets the license lapse, and Universal picks it up. And Piece by Piece, I mention all of this because Piece by Piece is interesting as the first film that Universal has made with that Lego license. Universal that has Illumination, that has DreamWorks, that has plenty enough of a monopoly going on as far as animated movies go. And the first movie they come out with is this artist-driven that the artist, producer, star picks a director. They want to make this film. Like, it's not necessarily just making big 4-quadrant IP plays like the Lego movies have tended to be. You have the Lego Batman movie, you have the Lego Ninjago movie, and this, by all accounts, behind the scenes, millions and millions of development money has gone into making Lego movies that haven't yet materialized. Joe Cornish is working on one. Patty Jenkins is working on one. There's a film that Jason Segel and Drew Pearce co-wrote called The Billion Brick Race. It's like a big race around the world caper, but with Legos. That hasn't come along yet. So it's interesting that Piece by Piece isn't one of those types of, isn't one of those, like, it's not a Batman
family
movie or
adventure kind of.
Yeah. If it was still a Warner Brothers, I have no doubt with, the race to the bottom and building a war chest to, have a go at trans people. Or someone might be doing. I'm not naming who. Let's say just or otherwise. We'd be up to the Lego Harry Potter movie by now if it was a Warner's. But it's interesting that it's this and not a Lego Jurassic Park movie and not a Lego Fast and Furious, which should be more interesting than either of what those franchises will have coming out in 2027. And as well as the music biopics thing, we've taken a shot at this. We've taken a shot at a Lego animated movie that isn't an IP play, but still in all of its marketing kind of plays quite kid friendly. But I wonder how much of that is because this is the first, for all of that IP play stuff, this is the first Lego movie where I felt like I was being sold a product.
Yes, that is.
And the product is Pharrell.
Yeah. The challenge that I think it has, I think it's a very pleasant watch. I think it's a really charming watch, and I think that whatever you think of Pharrell as a celebrity, if you are of our age or younger, then this has been the soundtrack to your life. If anyone who's like a millennial or younger says that they don't like Pharrell, you're going to have to sit them down and say, look, he's made about 200 songs that you love and you don't know he was behind. So on that level, it's fine. I think where it hits a bit of a sort of a brick wall is...
I see what you did there.
Yeah. It's the attempts to give it an arc. It's the attempts to make Pharrell seem like someone who's been on a journey and has sort of great sort of peaks and troughs to his life. Because we should say at the start for a bit, because at the start it doesn't just have that Morgan Neville, Pharrell Williams interview. It has him explain why he wants to do that, and he says that creativity it's not like inventing something that's totally new. It's like stacking things on top of other things until you come up with something new. Everything already exists. You just have to change the order it's in, which is, valid and is quite close to what Arthur Koestler says in The Roots of Creativity. So that's nice. But then it drops that. I mean, this isn't something like 20,000 Days on Earth, which is, for all it has biographical elements, 20,000 Days on Earth is basically a guy sits down and analyzes his creative process. And that's very high risk because it turns out there's not many people who can do that and remain interesting and insightful. And in terms of like modern music, I think Nick Cave is one of one.
Yeah, it's a thing of, it's not that there's any lack of interest. Certainly the amount of people who were in this and hilariously weren't told that it was going to be a Lego movie when they were doing the interviews. So Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg didn't know it was going to be a Lego thing when they recorded it, but were told before, obviously before it was announced, before the film came out.
Incredible.
But what you say there about there being an arc to it is, I think, it's exactly the problem from like two perspectives. It's a thing of, to what I was saying about this still being marketed as a kids movie, which has absolutely hilarious. Like the fact that in all the scenes with Snoop Dogg there is a haze of smoke, and there's a character in the background with a big like sort of carton that says PG smoke on it. So like, this isn't anything else. It's PG smoke, very specifically to get the PG from the MPA, which made me laugh a lot. It's from that end, and then also from the thing I continually rail against, the music biopic structure, the flattening down of stuff. But when you put that within the framework of, right, we can sell this, kids will love this as well,
Yeah.
you have this thing where any conflicts are summarily sort of dismissed. It's kind of like, oh, I was going to do this, but then I didn't, and then it was okay. You know, when Pharrell's wife's talking about how they met, it's kind of like, oh, we got talking, we really got along, but I was seeing someone. And then I later broke up with that person, and then we got together and got married. It's like, oh, okay, then. And that's all in the space of like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's got the thing of like, I get why he resisted. This will sound harsh. I get why he resisted making a documentary of his life. I think that this is delightful as a Lego movie with all of the colourful bits and bobs it throws in. It could even stand to go further with some stuff. It could go down the creature comforts route more than it does with Jay-Z and with Snoop Dogg's interviews. It's just that if it were live action as is, as scripted, it would feel very sanitized, very safe, and not a lot of actual substance to it, except for, you know, the wild tonal shifts that come in maybe the last 20 minutes or so. You know, it's fun enough to look at in the way that these Brick films are. Like, I like that, as you say, it's not him talking about his process, but I like that Neville pulls out things that influences creativity and his style in the interviews that you can then represent visually, like him being into Cosmos with Carl Sagan and Star Trek and Soul Train, all of which influence the look of the film as you're talking about them. It's one of those fun things that they do with, as much as it's a giant, you know, brand apparatus. It's one of those things you can do with the brick film, like animation thing, and whether the people are doing it at the studio level or it's animators coming up, then it's always nice to see. It's, you know, with the music biopic arc thing, it's a little like, you know, we've talked about Baz Luhrmann's Elvis before as well. Like, it's always going to be accredited to some combination of church and insert factor here. So church and Lego were huge, huge influences.
Yeah, the Star Trek thing actually has the best joke in the film, in my opinion, where he's watching sort of Lego sculpture rather than a figure of Spock doing the live long and prosper salute, and he just tries to do that with his little Lego two-pronged claw and can't figure it out, which is genuinely a great gag, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those really well animated films for just little sight gags like that in the background. There is, in the midst of it, as I say, this isn't an IP player, but it is to a certain extent taking advantage of the fact that it's a Universal rather than Warner Brothers. So, you know, the bit there, jumping ahead a little bit, when he's talking about, oh, I was struggling to come up with a song for this kids' film. The kids' film is obviously Despicable Me 2, and the music producers are represented by two big Lego minions, like sort of tapping their watches and looking at them, which is a nice touch. You know, there's the Universal Monsters thing with the sort of Frankenstein-inspired sequence.
I didn't think of that as a sort of a license thing, but
it's more public domain, but I'm thinking about it as an in-house, you know, as Universal's first thing. I'm frankly astonished that when Teddy Riley tells the story of Future Records holding the talent shows, you know, at the school, they don't have a line along like, you know, that fresh sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this. because it's the optics of that enchantment under the sea dance. So yeah, it's still an IP play in its way, but as I say, the IP is Pharrell.
Yeah, and the Teddy Riley bit is interesting because Teddy Riley in this telling of Pharrell's life is sort of a deus ex machina. That, you know, he says he grew up in the Virginia suburbs. He loved it. It was a really creative environment, but there's no realistic path to being a music star from like ordinary Virginia. You know, there's no Motown in Virginia, you know. And then suddenly Teddy Riley, who at that time was, you know, the Pharrell of his era, one of the biggest music producers in the world, turns up there. And there's a really funny bit when Teddy Riley has his own sort of moment like Pharrell later would with Frontin, where he thinks, right, I'm tired of just making other people's records sound amazing. I want to make records that sound amazing too. And he forms a sort of a New Jack Swing kind of hip hop crossover group called Rex and Effect. And he raps for the first time. And in his own telling, And I'm sure he's confident putting this across because, he's Teddy Riley. His legend is established in other areas. But he's like really upfront about the fact that, yeah, can't rap at all. Had to have Pharrell do a guest vocal. And he actually impersonates his own dog shit rapping on the first take. And it's incredible. And I just came out there thinking, what a dude, how secure in yourself do you
Yeah,
have to be to impersonate your own bad first take?
yeah, more of that would be lovely. Like, because I think
Yeah,
that it never becomes a full. I mean, it is by its nature a vanity project. Any kind of
yeah,
autobiopic, I think, kind of has to be. I don't by definition, but I did get like at certain points in those early bits, especially. I just sort of it gave me the impression like he was interviewing to be Pharrell Williams. It's like, so tell us why you think you'd be a great Pharrell Williams. It's like, well, I had enough credits to pass the 7th grade in school, but I did it again anyway because I realized I could do better. The way that it's done, it's the way that it's done. It's the way that it's represented. It's not like I struggled with this and I came through it. It's like it's sort of like, well, here's why I was great at being me.
yes, yeah, that's a very good point. I think the most turbulence that he hits from this perspective is not any of the sort of attempts to persuade us that he was having dark nights of the soul, which we get later
Yeah,
on, and we'll discuss those. But there is a genuinely interesting and revealing stretch of this movie where he's talking about making that leap that Riley did with Rex and Effect, where he's talking about wanting to first to sing with NERD, and secondly to be a solo artist. And a lot of the people who he'd helped to have massive hits, which at this point was everyone, at this point was everyone from Snoop Dogg to Gwen Stefani had a massive hit thanks to Pharrell Williams. But they're kind of skeptical about it. Nor has a very kind of noteworthy thing where he talks about Pharrell like canvassing Jay-Z and Nas for their opinion about launching a solo career. And he says, and I noted this down because it's very tactful. He says, everyone was a little skeptical because Pharrell wanted to make hip hop but not look like a hip hop star, which I assume is kind of like the politic way of saying we all told him to take off that fucking hat.
quite possibly. There are lots of. I think the most revealing bits in this are what you get in the interviews of other people.
Yes.
The thing that Jay-Z straight up says it. He's not street. That
Yeah.
like they all see him as a younger brother type, and they all kind of like protect him a bit because
Yeah,
he's
totally.
madly enthusiastic. That's not is not necessarily is sometimes a hindrance to him. Like the way that he describes that, and then Snoop Dogg kind of like just outright saying that he was sort of seen as gangster rapper and that, and the Drop It Like It's Hot became his first number one because it brought out that playful side. There is like that big again. It lends to the Lego of it, the big kid
Yeah.
side of him.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, to a great extent, it's why he's been successful. And it's hard, it's hard to say it without sounding like you're dissing him, particularly when you consider that, a lot of the sort of last 15 minutes of this movie features Kendrick Lamar. And Kendrick Lamar has recently, in fact, in the year this came out, been part of a huge discussion about what hip hop owes to its roots, what hip hop owes to the streets, can something that's as big globally as hip hop still claim to represent the deprived neighborhoods they came from? But Pharrell's genius is to sort of sever that a bit. And like I say, it's really hard for me to say this without sounding critical, but he is very true to himself. And you know, there have been cases in the past with hip hop where people who have less street credential than Pharrell Williams have been influential on its look and on its aesthetic and on its kind of palette of tones and themes, but in my experience, they tend to be like record executives or music video directors where no one gives a fuck what they look like. The fact that Pharrell was able to say, hey, I came from a background that was a bit rough, but not massively deprived. And, I had a supportive family who loved me and wanted me to do well. And I like fashion and I have this stupid fucking hat. It's like,
I like how that's part of his background. Like again in the job interview section, this
it's
hat
formative.
it's somewhere back there. It's further away than it looks. It's just massive. This is So the thing of it being, I think my issue with it on that side, like his representation of himself as opposed to what you get in the interviews that sort of slips through, is that it feels guarded, not that it feels insincere.
Yes.
There's bits in this that like come across well, but to describe them sound like really cringeworthy. Like this is a massive ego trip. The fact that the beats that he comes up with, as much as it gets into his it talks about his process. It just visually represents it through the synesthesia, colorful stuff. But then every beat he comes up with is sort of represented by a little like onesie brick with like light up studs on the side that vibrate like speakers. Because in the Lego of it all, it's like it's almost as if having like a thought bubble popping up sort of thing. It becomes an artifact like the kind they toss around in a lot of these like adventure movies that the Lego films themselves have usually took the mickey out of. And as I said, there's a sincerity to that. Like it's a way of like, this is how I would. And as you say, it's a figuring out where things go. It's a stacking of different things. It's part of a bigger. It's part of a whole. It's
Yeah, I think the visualization of his music works very well in those scenes, because at that point in the film, we're hearing about his music from other people. And as hard as it can be to envisage now that he's as culturally ubiquitous as he is, the Neptunes, when they started producing, were doing really strange shit. They were part of a movement along with Pharrell's old school friend, as I found out in this film, Timbaland, who were making more minimalist, electronic, kind of futuristic hip hop to replace the gangster rap cycle that had ended in, such tragedy with the deaths of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. And so you get these visuals where someone like Jay-Z or Nor will just open a briefcase and this glowing like alien artifact just pops out, and they're like, well, we just heard the beat and we thought, what the hell was this? And you think, yeah, it did take me back to those days when a Neptune's production did sound like the future. I remember hearing Caught Out There by Khalees on the radio for the first time and just having this immediate, this is great, what the fuck is it reaction. Because we're going to do the music documentary thing now, listeners. Picture me as Dave Grohl saying this. What you have to remember is that at the time, no one had heard anything like that.
Oh man, I was waiting to drop that bomb. It's not in there. There isn't a Lego Dave Grohl, so it escapes it. Bonds of gravity that is every music biopic having that clip, every music documentary having that clip. It's the only other thing they could have done that would have made this the basic music documentary, but it escapes that. Yeah, and it's Lego, so we're good. Yeah. We're good. We're safe. I'm just talking myself down from that. I didn't expect to have that reference back to me again. But it's coming to this as I am, like kind of, I'm learning a lot about this from this Lego movie. It's the way I learn most things about the world, from Lego movies. It's kind of, it's got that kind of rise thing to it, really. As I said, just being aware of like how these things are structured and stuff.
Yeah.
The guardedness of it made me want to know more about Chad Hugo. The fact that in this, they have this sort of like spoof Cribs sequence where Pharrell is like, and this is my Batmobile, and I want to live in a house like James Bond. And there's a very brief snippet of, his bandmate as Family Man, and it's kind of like done almost as a throwaway, like, he's doing all of that. And as I said, just reading around this afterwards, it felt guarded watching the film, but like learning that in the year this came out, it's like in April 2024, he sued Pharrell for trying to take sole trademark of the name of the
Yes.
Neptunes. And I'm fairly sure that still hasn't been resolved. I've just been reading around before we started recording, but yeah, exactly. But you know, it's that's where I'm like, brand exercise is where it takes me out of it a little bit. That like there's obviously I didn't expect that to be referenced in the film. This will have been getting made for many years, but you know, there's a side of that that's like, and Pharrell was doing this and Pharrell was doing that, and it is in a story about like, oh, it takes a lot of bricks to build what I do, sort of thing. It's piece by piece. It's kind of everyone working together. I felt that side of it was a little let down because when you have that dark night of the soul, like my problem was I was too successful. I was doing the McDonald's. Pharrell? What's your main weakness? You would say in your job being Pharrell Williams? I would say I did the McDonald's. I'm loving it jingle. That was me, and that I wanted to do lots and lots of different things. And I was staying away from my true calling, which is being mint.
Yes, yeah.
So we'll get back to you.
I think, yeah, that bit is where the film really started to hit the rocks with me. Like, I thought the opening was shaky when it's trying to set up that analysis of creativity. But for a while, you know, I liked hearing his story. I liked hearing all these songs again. I was fine with it. But yeah, it's when it tries to, you can really feel the brand exercise in it when it's trying to portray his dark night of the soul, and it obviously wants to say, you know, I overstretched myself, I did too many things, I diluted my creativity, and it does mock some of his business ventures, but equally, you know, it starts off with a bit about his clothes line, which it wants you to know is actually still very credible and still going today. And it's like, as you say, the problem he faces is that he's just too awesome at too many things. Which isn't terribly compelling, I think.
Are you saying I shouldn't say that when I go into job interviews? Because I've been saying that. Oh, thank you, Pharrell Williams. Once again, you saved me from myself. Yeah. So it's an odd one because it doesn't last very long, and it is that thing of creative exhaustion, but doesn't do that visually. We're just sort of told it again. Like and that's for me the contrast between his interviews being turned into Lego and everyone else's interviews being woven into the fabric of the Lego and the story arc and everything else. And you just sort of get this. We might be getting ahead of ourselves. We might be too far, but I did enjoy like out of this. It's sort of like, as I say, it doesn't last long, but out of this, the way out of it, and it's like, and then I did get lucky. And it gets and it gets the fanfare that Get Lucky deserves. It arrives, it's amazing. Look, there's Daft Punk and their Lego as well.
Yeah.
There's now Williams, these Lego as well. And it's you feel somewhere Lemmy just sat bolt upright in bed and said, listen, Get Lucky if you can. It's the song of the summer if you get the chance. It's just like I was watching it late at night and it's like, yeah, you just know it happened every time someone plays this song or watches this film. That's all you can think about. And it launches right in that, like, yep. Of course it was, and this is where you get to this bit that I was mentioning earlier on, where you have the minions as music producers, and it's still sort of in the creative block section. And this is where I really question the narrative and the arc of it, because you know, Happy is the phenomenon that Happy is. You know, it's the kids' movie is obviously Despicable Me 2. Happy comes out, and I remember when this came out. This was like my youngest brother. Born in 97, so must have been at the absolute arse end of just sitting at home all day watching music video channels. But he did have when Happy came out, he was at that stage of just sitting at home all day watching music video channels. How do I know this? Because I'm a freelance writer and I was sat on my ass watching music video channels as well. But the launch of that, the aside from the film, like the launch of the music videos around that, where there was a sort of 24-hour, there was like different videos to fill like a 24-hour sort of sliding scale of this song on repeat. It was massively promoted, and the response to that, as it's described in the film, is very much as I remember it. That song was absolutely enormous, like coming right on the heels of Get Lucky. And that's the important thing to say, is that Get Lucky was 2013, Despicable Me 2 was 2013. The 24-hour cycle thing was maybe at latest 2014. And the way the film has it is like, but then Black Lives Matter happened. And it's like, that's a huge and it's the tonal shift alone, like, is absolutely mind-boggling. Like the tonal shift from Happy to that, and it feels very rushed at the end of the film. That this is sort of taking a very leisurely sort of nice and brand managed sort of romp through his early days, and it's like we went straight from happy to all right,
Yeah.
as if it's like a mood shift, but it's like
Yeah, and it's like part of the thing with All Right is it's like if you asked me why did Pharrell Williams co-write All Right, say that 10 times fast, my answer would be fairly simple. It's that Kendrick Lamar wanted to do that song and thought Pharrell would be a good fit in it. There's no shame to this slightly artisanal thing of being a producer. In fact, it's genuinely impressive that Pharrell Williams can produce Hollaback Girl and All Right. That's range,
Yeah.
But it comes at a point in the film where it's already established Pharrell as an artist, and it has to represent something coming from his soul. And I'm sure in a lot of ways it does. I'm sure he was looking at the country during those early Black Lives Matter protests and the rise of Trump and thinking, God, what does it mean to be black in this country now? But as you say, yeah, it is a massive clonking gear shift to go from, happy and videos coming in from all around the world, everyone being happy, everyone loves being happy. And it turns out that the police are racist and murdering people in the streets.
Yeah, it turns out we're only all right, maybe worse than that, in fact. But it's not a thing of saying it shouldn't be in there. It's just like it is, as you say, just giant jump from that to the black and white Lego Black Lives Matter protests and stuff. It's an odd one, and you wonder how much of it is again brand management. Is that someone or other? Like the film is 90 minutes long, just about and it's an odd shift. As I say, it's just very front loaded in general with all of this story of his life thing. And I get that it's in there, but it's even in the film. It's like, and it's almost like, and then that's in like the next morning. It's like, nope, about 6 or 7 years. It was.
Yeah.
So it trips over that at the end, and then goes from that into the original song over the credits, which I know it's called Piece by Piece. Context clues give me that it's called Piece by Piece. The more he sings it repeated, it just sounds Piece by Piss. And the chorus has a refrain until it pays off, until it pays off, until it piss off, until it piss off. I was just very late at night. I was like, "What? I'm very tired."
Well, did the PG spray run out for this bit?
Well, yeah, exactly. It just presses like doing that air or something. It's so no. we just got baked instead.
Yeah. It's very strange the way that it handles that late stuff, because it does have 3 songs that you cannot plausibly miss out of the narrative, but that arrive slightly oddly in a narrative context. As you say, the most interesting narrative material, like from a pure storytelling and moods perspective, is that stuff about his early life, his childhood, his school years, his rise to fame. I remember thinking I'd see a whole movie about that, which is the problem, because we can't.
Yeah, it's just structurally. Do you think like they run the risk, of course, of everyone going like, "Hold on, son, Pharrell Williams has to think about his entire life before he plays." But would this have worked as more? Would this have worked better as like a Lego concert movie rather than the more standard? If it was like a Lego version of him performing the songs and it was kind of done in that way, because I don't think it works. It doesn't commit to doing it as a story. It's not a flat narrative adaptation of it, and nor is it, in the way his talking heads bits are sort of represented. It's not anything beyond the bog standard, brand approved music documentary, but with amazing Lego animation.
Yeah, it would have worked better in my view had they actually stuck to the idea about analysing the creative process, and then you don't have to do it in chronological order. You can have him talk about what it takes to create a song like Happy, and then half an hour later or 10 minutes later or at the other end of the film, you can have him talk about All Right. It doesn't have to run into each other. You can talk about it when it's relevant to the sort of ideas that he's discussing. I think that
Yeah.
would have been better. Or just do the whole movie about his school days. But there's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
story behind that, isn't there?
Yeah.
This is the Pharrell Williams movie that we won't see, which was referred to as Atlantis throughout production. It was changed its title to Golden. He was going to do like
All
a
right.
full coming of age movie directed by
Right.
Michel Gondry.
Oh, I hadn't heard
Um,
about this. Yeah.
yeah, this was going to happen. He was
Yeah.
going to do this, and it made it. I think it finished filming, and it got scrapped. And there's been a lot of speculation about why that hasn't happened.
Right. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, especially in the light of this coming out as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it got a lot of kind of what you would describe as the kind of Batgirl excuses, which is like, well,
Right.
the Hollywood producers descended from Mount Olympus and, took their learned assessment of the artistic merits of the material produced therein and decided that it would not elevate the Shut the fuck up. No, they didn't. No one does
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
It's
With
such
with their impeccable tastes, they threw a lightning bolt into it and chucked it into a tax hole. And there was much
yeah.
rejoicing among the shareholders. Yeah, fuck off. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it's a
Until it
shame
piss
because
off.
it's a shame because, like, firstly, as I say, the school days stuff is the most interesting and certainly the most narratively rewarding part of this movie, and it would have also been the most pop screen movie in many a year. It obviously it
Yeah.
has Pharrell in it. It would have had Janelle Monáe. It would have had Anderson .Paak. It would have had Missy Elliott in it. It sounds great, but we will probably never get to see it.
Yeah, I mean, instead we get this, which I should say when the movie finished, I'm talking about this being like still packaged as an animated movie, but an animated movie that's for kids. I will tell you that the movie that's now TV suggested and wanted to autoplay right after the film finished was Rock Dog 2: Rock Around the Park. Which is a Sky original animated film. Whose plot synopsis goes: the rocker K9 and his band enjoy great success in their village when a music mogul gives them the opportunity to go on a tour with an established pop star. Soon, the friends learn that there is a price at that type of fame. And I think we cover about the same ground in Piece by Piece, the Pharrell Williams Lego story.
Yes, yeah, just less K9, despite the presence of Snoop
Yeah,
Dogg.
despite the presence of Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, no, that's very true. It does always feel like there's. I understand why they didn't want to release an R-rated or even PG-13 Lego movie, but when it gets onto things like, Pusha T saying, "Oh yeah, I drifted away from the music industry and went back into hustling," you do something. Well, that's a story. How does that happen? But
Yeah,
it's a story that we can't tell is the
yeah.
answer.
Yeah, they were just kind of episodes throughout. I think that you mentioned the thing about the glowing object in the briefcase. One of my favorite things, and this is the thing where he's talking about here's a beat. Don't listen to it till you get to Miami, and it's the the sort of visualization of the plane journey and wanting to get
Yes.
there, it's little bits like that that really keep this lively for me, because as I said, it's structurally just very strange as a film,
Yeah.
and it feels guarded, even though you want to be pulled into, even though with the visuals and everything they're doing with the animation, you really want to be pulled into it.
Yeah, it does have some lovely animation. I found the Lego suburbs at night weirdly atmospheric. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'd watch a whole kind of, I don't want to say Stranger Things because I never liked Stranger Things, but you could do an 80s Amblin style, adventure with a load of kids on bikes riding through these Lego suburbs, and it would look great, I think.
Yeah. It's like, it's an odd one because it's, as I said, the Lego franchise being where it is, the Lego license, because it's not all one thing. They do all sort of get lumped in together, and I don't, as you say, I don't think they ever would have made a PG-13 or an R-rated Lego movie. But
No.
the odd sort of like narrow casting of it is something strange to me, because it is a style of animation, but it's just that thing. It's many such cases, isn't it, of of animation in general being generalized as for kids.
Yes.
So you end up with this thing that's sort of neither here nor there on some aspects of the story.
Yeah, definitely. I want to, before we sort of wrap up, I think it's worth claiming a bit of space to talk about some of the individual songs in this movie because there are.
Mm.
I remember when the BBC made an attempt to relaunch Top of the Pops a few years back, and
Oh yes,
one of the features they had was this thing called Gig in a Minute. Do you remember this?
I didn't. I remember when they did it, but I didn't watch any of it. What was it? What was it then?
Gig in a Minute was where they would get like an artist who was on the show that week to do like as many like snippets of hits that they've had in a medley in a minute.
Nice.
And one of the you know one of the things that a friend of mine who watched it said one of the things that really killed it was that one week they had Nile Rodgers on it. And Nile Rodgers' Gig in a Minute is basically the last 50 years of pop music. He does We Your Family, he does La Freak, he does China Girl, he does Material Girl, he does Let's Dance, he does Get Lucky, of course. And you just think, yeah, that's really ruined it for anyone else doing this feature, isn't it? It's like next week it'll be the Kooks or someone like that.
Yeah.
And this film is really like Pharrell Williams's Gig in 90 minutes. It's
Yeah.
really laudably dedicated to saying that song, I did that, and that song, and that song you like, that song I did, that song I did as well. Um, so I just want to pull some of them out. We've talked a bit about Get Lucky. I'm completely with you on Get Lucky. I think it's a joyful song, and
Song of the
over
summer. Give it a listen if you get a chance.
yeah. But Happy is a very divisive record, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of them things that it might not be like the last example. Maybe there's been one or two since that I can't think of. Like maybe Uptown Funk the following year, but like it's certainly one of those hits that's a hit. It's a number one. There are plenty of UK number ones now. You don't hear that much of. It's become a thing of when
Yeah,
I run a monthly music pub quiz, and just as a question, I'll just play a clip and say, "This is the current UK number one. Name the song and the artist." And it's surprising how many people don't know,
yeah,
just because downloads count in that. So I could see as far as like I think I've never found anyone who's like really ardently, smash their pint glass to the floor. I fucking hate this song if Happy comes on, but I can imagine because it's a ubiquitous number one, like the kind we used to get. I could imagine it having that kind of backlash that you would get if a
yeah.
song's everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
I think it's the ubiquity thing, and I think there's like a couple of other things. I think it was like ahead of the curve in having that sort of TikTok structure that people started complaining about 5 years ago, where a song will just be like verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, and it'll just bang that out in 2 minutes flat, and there'll be
Yeah.
no middle eight or bridge or solo or anything. 'Cause it's just based on being aimed at TikTok, which wasn't really a thing when Happy was made, but it has that structure.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that people love happy music, but anything that's actually called happy just has a massive fucking target on its back. There's all like Public Enemy in the late 80s was complaining that we lived through the Reagan era, and the most acclaimed piece of black music at the end of it all is "Don't worry, be happy." What are you trying to say to us? Shiny happy people too. People were driven mad by shiny happy people. There's a whole Dennis Leary stand-up routine where it's like, shiny happy people, I'm actually one of the angry people.
It's a little it's a little of, do you remember that bit in Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping where the guy does his solo raps called Things in My Jeep, and there's a talking head that just goes, I couldn't relate. I had different things in my Jeep. It's that on him, but for the feeling of being happy.
And what he couldn't have predicted is that we were about to go into a period of world history where not many people are happy. Few, if any, of us feel like a room without a roof. And I think that just cemented it as something. But I'm fine with it. I think it's a fine song. And I think watching it in this, it is sort of interesting that, as you say, it's church and, it starts off with one of his big formative musical experiences being, going into church and hearing a gospel choir. And when I heard Happy with that fresh in my mind, I thought, oh, yeah, it's basically secular gospel, isn't it, Happy? That's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's also worth, because I've just thought, like, it's sort of a forerunner to, it at the time. It's at the time where you go, no, get up, Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl almost took me over there. What I was going to say is, at the time, it's made for a kids movie, and it's a
Yeah,
breakout song from a kids movie. Like, up until We Don't Talk About Bruno, there was never like a Disney song got to #1 in the UK charts. And
yeah,
now we've got We Don't Talk About Bruno. We've got Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters. You have this breakthrough thing because it's a thing that kids are listening to over and over and over again, and now that counts towards the charts. And I think
yeah.
maybe Happy's like a really early example of that, of a song that's very much, for kids, from a kids movie, really breaking out.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah, and it feels like, again, like a backhanded compliment saying it's transcended Despicable Me too. But it
Yeah,
has, I think, most people who listen to Happy, most people who've heard it on the radio probably do have absolutely no idea that that was from a kids' movie. It survives perfectly well outside of that environment. There's a few artists like he collaborated with in his early years who I think they're not elided, but they're interestingly kind of downplayed. There was another lawsuit about money, I think. Oh, I don't think it really got to a lawsuit stage. I think it was just a shit contract with him and Khalees. So there's like a very brief snatch of milkshake in here, but there's no that you don't hear caught out there, which I think is
right.
probably maybe a bit PG unfriendly anyway.
Yeah,
But the early Khalees stuff just isn't there at all, which is a shame because that was a huge point in like breaking the Neptunes through and making everyone aware that there were these really exciting producers out there. And the other thing, which I think is probably the most problematic part of his legacy at this point, and which is very briefly in the movie, is that he was, of course, responsible for giving Justin Timberlake street credibility.
yeah, there is that. It's the other Take a Drink listeners. We're going to mention Justin Timberlake and then spit at the floor. Little shit. Anyway.
Yeah, that perhaps understandably is, yeah,
Yeah.
but as Todd in the Shadows pointed out in his Man of the Woods video, you forget how utterly ubiquitous Justin Timberlake was at his peak and how universally beloved he seemed. And it's hard not to think that that is basically entirely because of the Neptunes.
Yeah, and that's obviously why you get so many artists like participating, not just in doing interviews, but in the music clearance side of this. That's what makes me think, would a concert movie with Lego business going on have kind of
Yeah,
played better?
yeah, maybe.
Because they've all given their likeness rights and music rights for it as well. So I don't know. I certainly think it would have been an easier sell going by that trailer that I mentioned at the beginning. That is very much, it's Pharrell. Like, we're selling Pharrell. Like, Lego concert movie would have been something very different.
I think the other hard part about selling Pharrell is the thing that I mentioned, where he is a star and he does have hits, but part of what is like interesting and acclaim worthy about him is that he also molds himself perfectly well to other people's world and you know, creates works that are in a kind of a sensibility or a subgenre that you wouldn't associate with him. And so
Yeah.
attempting to hang the whole thing on, hey, it's Pharrell, big personality showbiz Pharrell, is you're really taking like probably the least interesting part of what this guy is and
Hmm.
making it the central dish.
Yeah, it's just an odd one. I mean, it's probably a tricky thing to market because they've decided just they have to market it to kids. So it's,
Yeah.
and the adults who are anyway, I'm not going to go see a Lego movie, and kids are like, well, I like Happy, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Very few kids were really clamoring to hear "You're All Right" on the big screen. Although I should point out before we close the Kendrick Lamar thing. did have like everyone on the internet who was aware of this movie making the same joke, and it's a good one, so I'm going to repeat it here. Kendrick Lamar.
Way,
Thank you.
very good.
Yes. Any more observations before we wrap it up?
Yeah, it's just, I think I've said it all really. Just that, you know, it's an odd, it's the first thing out of like what the Lego license moving over somewhere else, and it's vastly different to what had gone before. And it's a shame it didn't do better, just so we can't see more stuff like this. And on the music biopic front, it's a shame that we're back in Michael land, more or less. It's
Yes.
just that we're back
Yeah.
in. We're going to have more of these. We're going to have 4 Beatles ones of these. You know, we're going to have
Yeah.
the next few years is just another wave of that, of the walk hards.
Yes, yeah, very much. Yeah. I would quite like the Beatles ones if they leaned into the Rashomon of it all. If like Ringo's movie was just like 2 hours of all of the other Beatles going, well, obviously you're the musical talent of the group, Ringo, you have final say. And then
Yeah.
the other 3 contradict that.
I'll say this: I don't know how Sam Mendes is approaching it, but if they're not all 4 different genres, then it's an absolute waste of time. Make one of them an action movie, one of them a comedy, one of them a horror, one of them a love story, and then we'll talk. Sam Mendes. Why won't you answer my calls? Anyway, that's where I'm at on that. And I'd tell you what, for all its flaws, I think Piece by Piece is like a really creative burst. It's like Better Man was, you know, it's so different from anything else anyone else is making, and I like
Yeah.
it for that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. Mark, give people a reminder of where they can find your work on and offline.
I'm markharrison.bsky.social on Blue Sky. They never really did figure out the URL thing, and I'm just double checking. Yeah, I'm also Mark Harrison on Letterboxd. We can find various takes on bits and bobs, other podcasts, guest appearances, and things. I'll post as, you know, diary entries. So yeah.
Yeah, I have a website at grahamwilliamsonfilms.com. I'm on Instagram at grahamwfilms. And my main social media thing is Letterboxd, which, like Mark, I'm on with my real name. I'm on as Graham Williamson. So we'll be back with another autobiopic on the free feed in a couple of weeks' time. We're looking to do the Madness film, Take It or Leave It. And on Patreon, we're also having a look at what I haven't seen yet, but I am absolutely certain is going to be the weirdest damn movie we cover as part of this season. Cypher, starring Tierra Whack as maybe Tierra Whack. But until then, I've been Graham.
And I've been Mark. And don't forget to check out Daft Punk's new single, Get Lucky, if you get the chance. Sound of the Summer.